Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Follow Your Passion. Please let you introduce me, my special guest of today. It's Paul Dillon. Paul retired as a consultant from the McGladrey accounting firm in 2006. Upon his retirement, he reinvented himself by starting his own firm in Chicago, which is now devoted to helping veterans who want to start their own business. Yet his business didn't start out with the idea of helping veterans. Paul thought to deliver project management and business development services to companies, but that didn't work out and he had to pivot several times to find a niche that worked for him. His big break and pivot moment came when one of his clients asked him to do some research in 2011 on companies that were hiring veterans. Being a former US Army Reserve First Lieutenant who fought in the Vietnam War, Paul spent a considerable amount of time learning what he could about those companies and around the nation who were hiring veterans and around all kinds of support programs. All of this research led to a very successful section in the publication around Veterans Day in 2011 called Veterans in the Workplace, and things just took off from there. Paul was the creator of a concept of an incubator in Chicago for veterans who wanted to start their own business called The Bunker, now known as Bunker Labs. In November 2013, he moved his headquarters to Durham, NC, and maintained an office in Chicago. He worked with an organization called Entradot to start a support program for aspiring veteran entrepreneurs in North Carolina, and he created a course and teaches on veterans issues at Sanford School of Public Policy at Duke University. In his own words, I was raised and educated to be of service to others, and now have channeled that effort in helping veterans who want to start their own business. While my business didn't start out with that in mind, I found that helping veterans was my true calling. Welcome, Paul. Pleasure to have you in the show.
Thank you so much, Erwin, and thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Yeah. So, Paul, let me ask you this question. You have been, as I said, a former first lieutenant. You have fought in the Vietnam War, and when you retired from the army, there wasn't such service as you provide right now. How was it for you to return to society?
That was a difficult time, Erwin. First of all, I didn't retire. The obligation for reserve officers back then, commissioned officers, was 2 years of active duty and 6 years of reserve duty. So I left active duty in April of 1971. And that was a very, very difficult time. The war was not popular in the United States then. And so we were we were really treated not very well when we came home. Mm-hmm. And hopefully, and I think that this country has learned its lesson now to treat the recent veterans who've come home from the Afghanistan and Iraq wars much differently than we were treated. And I think the country really learned from the terrible experiences that we had. And I've heard more than one person tell me over the years that they hope that no veteran is ever treated again like we were treated when we came home from that awful war so long ago.
Yeah.
And so the country really learned its lesson. And now there's just a proliferation of services for veterans recent veterans who've come home from those wars.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And having this experience yourself, you kind of know also what's going on within those veterans, right? And you can support them to find their way back to society.
Well, sure. I think that, once you've been in the military, on active duty, and particularly when you fought in a war, you understand the mentality of the people, hopefully, that you're dealing with as best as you can. So you're able to guide them, hopefully, and in the right ways. I will tell you that there's I have no hard evidence of this, but it's estimated now in this country, in the United States, that there are between 40,000 and 50,000 separate nonprofit organizations devoted to veterans care, for some 4,000 and 8,000 websites. So there's a lot of support out there, and many times it's navigating through all of those organizations what is best for the individual veteran, and we've tried to do that as best as we can over the years. So
your niche is actually helping veterans who want to start their own business, to get some momentum, to help them start their own business. What kind of skills would you say that are taught in the Army that are very useful to start your own business?
Oh, there's Erwin, there's many, but let me give you just several. One is the military teaches you about accomplishing the mission. It's all about accomplishing the mission. And so that skill of driving towards accomplishing the mission is so very important. The military teaches you a commitment to hard work. The United States Army used to have a slogan that we do more by 9 a.m. than most people do all day.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, that is absolutely true. So there's a lot of hard work that is done in the military, and that you learn from your service. The ability to function as a member of a team, but also how to lead a team, is a skill that you learn in the military that is very, very, very important. I think one of the most important skills, though, for somebody starting a business is the ability to pivot on a moment's notice from plans that aren't working to plans that do. Because I got to tell you something, Erwin, if your battle plan isn't working out, you better come up with something really quick.
Yeah.
This isn't a matter of corporate profits. This is a matter of lives being on the line. So you've got to pivot, be very quick on your feet to come up with something that that works, and you've got to do it really, really fast. Along with that, I think the entire concept of leadership in the Army, of the armed forces of the United States, and not just the Army, but the other armed forces too, at the officer level or senior non-commissioned officer level, is the concept of duty before self and taking care of your people. Now we call that servant leadership.
Yeah.
It's not a new concept. The United States Army has been teaching servant leadership for over 243 years. Because, Erwin, if you can't convince the people under your command that you're going to take care of them as well as you're accomplishing the mission, guess what? It doesn't work. They're not going to follow you.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of servant leadership is instilled and those officers are senior non-commissioned officers in charge of running the armed forces of the United States. Corporate America has taken this on and interprets it, I think, in the right way, that if you take care of your people and your clients, profits will come. Yeah. And, you know, I spent 45 years in the professional services industry with accounting and consulting firms, and that is absolutely true. If you take care of your people working along with you and your customers and clients, business flourishes.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that, Paul. Indeed, I also think that another important aspect is walk the walk, right? If I've somewhere I've read a quote that there's never been a general that won a war behind his desk. Yeah, and, you know, and that's with the veterans as well. You know, if you lead by example, the others will follow.
And that's the best way, I think, to learn leadership. You know, I don't think in my own experience, leadership can't be taught. It can be nurtured in those who have the proclivity towards it.
Yeah.
But if you're a selfish person, if you don't like other people, if you've been raised by your parents or haven't been raised by your parents, trained by your educators, counseled by your religious leaders, to be a person who is committed to others, you're not going to be a leader. So by the time you get into business, I think the die is cast. It's too late.
Yeah.
Those who have been taught, raised by their parents, taught by their teachers, counseled by their religious leaders, to be of service to others, they can learn leadership. And I think the best way that they learn it is by watching other people doing it in the right way. I don't think you can learn it in the classroom.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. You know, those are skills that you learn by experience, and they have to be part of you, and you can nurture them, as you said, right?
Right. But if you don't have them, if you're a mean or selfish person, or mean and selfish, and a lot of people are, you aren't going to be a leader. People will do things for you because they're scared. They have to. That's not leadership.
No.
You want people to do things with you and for you because they want to support you, because you support them first.
Exactly. Right. With the right leadership, they will go the extra mile for you.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Wonderful. Right. Would you say that in your experience, you know, from the veterans that want to start their own business, that is there some big denominator between what kind of persons are willing to start their own business? Were there leaders already, or is it very individual dependent?
I think it is very individual dependent. And there was a study that came out some years ago, quite a number of years ago, by the United States Small Business Administration, that said 45% of the younger veterans coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan wanted to start their own businesses. So I think there's some proclivity, maybe there's some background maybe that the military gives you, as we discussed, that enables you to start down on that path. But it isn't everybody. You know, I mean, not everybody is cut out for it. Not everybody wants to do it. You know, what often is discussed is the rate of failure is very high for new businesses. 1 out of 5 in this country don't survive 1 year. 80% of new businesses don't survive after 5 years.
Yeah.
So, you know, the rate of failure is pretty high, and not everybody is cut out for that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's very individualistic. The people I know who have been successful entrepreneurs, none of which, by the way, served in the military, just have had this idea that they don't want to work for anybody else.
Yeah.
And they've decided to make it a go.
Yeah. So if I would refer to this research that you did with those companies that were hiring veterans, would you say that there are similarities between the different companies? What make them hire veterans, especially?
That's a great question. I don't think in terms of industries, I don't think it's any particular one industry, whether it's manufacturing or whether it's sales or whether it's, you know, professional services. I don't think it's any one particular industry.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is incumbent upon those charged with hiring in whatever industry it is, a food company, an accounting firm, an education services support company, to recognize the skills that veterans bring and to want to bring those on board. So I don't think it's any one particular industry. But I think it's incumbent upon those charged with hiring to recognize the skills that people bring. I know a lot of veterans, you know, have gone into security type of functions because of their background.
Yeah.
Many of them have gone into the trades, construction, carpentry, plumbing, electricians, whatever. The unions in the United States have had a concentrated program on recognizing the skills that veterans bring to bring veterans on board and, you know, enable them to have the skills, train them to have the skills that they need to succeed in those various professions. But I don't think it's any one industry. I think it's all across the board. It takes an HR person or a hiring person to recognize the skills that veterans can bring and then go ahead and utilize it.
Yeah, and it's great that you mentioned that, because a few weeks ago, I was a guest in another podcast. I was talking about gaming, you know, computer games and stuff like that. And a lot of parents think that it's bad for the children. But if you look at particular games, you're also developing certain skills. You know, you need certain skills in order to win a game. You know, it could be concentration, could be helicopter view, could be strategic planning, stuff like that. And those games could actually develop skills that you need in the real world, you know, in business. And I think that what you just shared is that those companies, those HR professionals, they didn't look for, let's say, an accounting firm, right? They didn't look for new employees that already had an accounting background, but they looked at the skills a person needed to fulfill the job. And those skills can be gathered by different backgrounds. So also in the army, right? I sometimes say as a metaphor that for instance, mothers, you know, they could be great project managers or logistic managers. But because if you have children at home, you know, you need to plan everything. You need to plan them being dressed, being washed, have breakfast, go to school. In between, you have to clean the house. So that requires a lot of planning skills, which could mean that there are great project managers, for instance, or logistic managers.
Right.
But a lot of HR professionals don't look at it that way.
Right.
Because you haven't done
true.
project manage, and
Right.
I think it's similar for veterans that have been in the army. You know, you already mentioned some great skills that are required for starting your own business and building your own business, but it's also in the professional world, and there are those HR professionals that recognize those skills. So even though if you don't have an accounting background or, for instance, a plumbing background, if you have learned those skills in the army, you can apply for the job, and that's wonderful.
And I think that it goes beyond that, because if you've been taught to take charge of a project, take care of people, be able to pivot when it's necessary, all those skills can be beneficial in any number of occupations. So, I think it's across the board, and people do learn in different ways. There was a professor some time ago down here at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill who wrote a book, and I think he taught a class called All Kinds of Minds, that people learn in different ways, unfortunately, our education system at the primary and secondary level here in the country is very test oriented, very funnel oriented, but that's not how everybody learns. Different people learn in different ways.
Yeah.
So I think, that's an important thing to recognize also.
Yeah, definitely. And I just thinking about, you could also make the mapping the other way around. You could say that if you look at the army and the things they're doing there, that they're running actually projects, right? So let's say that a team leader in the army is actually in project manager because he has a project to finish. He has a goal to achieve, and he has his team members who has to work with him and cooperate with him and make sure that the project gets executed and finished within time, within the parameters that were given to him or her,
while taking care of his people.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. What's the difference between that and project management? Except one deals with corporate profits, the other deals with people's lives.
Exactly.
I brought this up on a number of occasions because people don't understand, who haven't been in the military, forget that the failure of leadership isn't just that a company goes down the tubes. It's the difference between life and death.
Yeah, definitely.
So it becomes pretty serious.
Yeah. It's not you're losing money, you're losing lives if you're not doing your job correctly.
That's right.
Right. So the stakes are much higher in the army. And that's, if you're well, used sounds a bit strange because I think you never get used to it. But let's use by lack of another word, when you're used of dealing with human lives and keeping your team members alive and finishing the project, then you can run any project, right?
hopefully, I think that's true. You know,
Yeah.
I really do. You know, I mean, I think it's a great training, and I think it is finally being recognized that the tremendous skills, and not just the Army, but you know, in the armed forces of the United States. So,
Yeah.
Army, Marines, Air Force, Navy, and even the Coast Guard, of course. You know, so you know, in all those branches, Space Force now, in all those branches. Are taught, you know, pretty much the same leadership skills.
Right. So if I would pivot to your teaching skills, you created a course for the Duke University, right, where you teaching students what points of attention are when dealing with veterans in business. What kind of challenges do you share with them that because are you preparing like the future policymakers or the future company owners that could probably hire veterans? Or
to date, most of the students have been in two groups. One is public policy. It's in the course is housed in the Sanford School of Public Policy. Mm-hmm. So its original design was to give students who are going into public policy, government roles, nonprofit roles that deal with policy issues in the United States, to give them a survey of all the issues that affect veterans. So they'll be working with veterans in any occupation, you know, that they go into, and what are the various aspects that veterans experience comprised, what veterans are dealing with. The other group, which was kind of a surprise, was from the Duke Divinity School. And they are students who are training to be chaplains, either in the United States military or in the Veterans Administration. Mm-hmm. So they're interested in learning about veterans issues. So the course covers the full spectrum of issues regarding veterans. So it's veteran mental health, substance abuse, traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, housing and homelessness, legal issues for veterans in veteran treatment courts. We have here in the United States diversion courts. In the civilian world, they're drug diversion courts. You, rather than shipping somebody off to prison, which are the new mental health facilities, you bring them into court, they plead guilty, they go through a treatment program. If they successfully complete that treatment program, counseling program, then their record is expunged. So we have veteran treatment courts that are like these civilian courts. And then veteran employment and entrepreneurship. So the course is designed as a smile. We go from mental health issues to housing, homelessness, legal issues, but come out on the other end, the upswing of the curve, as employment and entrepreneurship. Because people, if you read the popular press, in many instances, at least in this country, and I don't know in the Netherlands or in Europe, but you could get the false impression that every veteran is damaged. You know, everybody's damaged.
Yeah.
They're all screwed up by the combat experience. Most of these people have not experienced combat. It's estimated, and this is a very rough estimate, that only 30% of the people deployed in the armed forces of the United States to Afghanistan and Iraq, most recent wars, experience combat. The rest were logistics experts, computer experts, air traffic controllers, military police,
Yeah.
So you can get the false impression that if you're not careful, that every veteran is, for lack of a professional term, screwed up in some way.
Yeah.
The other opposite side of that coin, Erwin, is veterans have been treated as heroes. Not everybody's a hero. Maybe the air traffic controller isn't a hero. Maybe the aircraft loader isn't a hero. And the damage about treating everybody as a hero is it can set the veteran apart from the workforce. Oh, I don't know, gee, Erwin, should we really hire that guy? I don't know. Imagine what he or she has experienced,
Yeah.
Maybe they were an aircraft loader, they didn't,
Yeah.
So I think it runs the spectrum of either end being skewed.
Yeah.
Damage, hero.
Yeah.
Most people are in between.
Exactly. It's those stereotypes that screw up the image of the veterans, right? Either they get discriminated negatively or discriminated positively, and you don't want either. You just want them to give them a fair chance in society and get them in a job or support their entrepreneurship.
Right. I wanted to, you're talking about hiring veterans in the workplace, and the title of your podcast is Following Your Passion.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in some instances, but Erwin, in many instances in my working life and what I've seen with people in jobs, various jobs throughout the 45 years that I, spent in business, is jobs are a compromise. They're a compromise between what you got to kind of do to make some money and what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And what you like to do. So, and so most people aren't in a position in their job, and I want to emphasize that, to follow their passion. What if, Erwin, your passion, I'm being facetious here, is basket weaving, and you've got 3 kids to put through college? It ain't going to happen, No,
exactly. Are you still there, Paul?
Am I here?
Yes, you're back again.
Okay. You're going to have to find a job that you like and that somebody, you're good at, and somebody will pay you for. I think you can use that job then to do what you might call following your passion. I've always wanted to have a commitment to public service, community service. I use my job to volunteer for boards and nonprofit organizations. I'm a distance lap swimmer. I've used my job to make enough money to not only support my family, send my kids to school or whatever, but to join a health club and do lap swimming.
Yeah.
So there are various ways of following your passion. It doesn't have to be necessarily in your job.
Oh no,
If that
definitely
makes
not.
sense.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely. You know, and it's also that there are different kind of people. You know, and some are very happy doing that job and making the job, making their passion possible. Right. For instance, driving fast cars in the weekend or motor riding. Right.
right,
And not everybody is gifted to make that full-time living out of them, right?
right,
Not everybody is, well, in Dutch case, Max Verstappen.
right,
Or, but in your case, what I found beautiful is what you said, that you found your true calling, you know, and it's either it's following your passion or it's following your purpose or following your true calling. That, you know, you retired from your previous job in 2006.
right.
You're still alive and kicking and helping veterans to start their own business and teaching at school. So
Right.
that shows that you're doing what feels you can make a positive impact, and it feels good doing that and helping the veterans.
And I like to do it.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
I mean, I'm having a real nice time doing it. You know,
Yeah,
so it isn't now. Is it my passion? You know, I think that I understand it's a term of art, and I understand it's the colloquialism, and I think it's fine that you use it. I mean, that's not a problem. I just don't think I think people think that in their job, well, I've got to find something that I'm really, quote, passionate about. Well, great, but if nobody's going to pay you for it, I mean, you've got kind of a problem,
exactly. Yeah, definitely.
So I think there are ways of following what you really like to do, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in your job,
No.
or it can be later on in life, like I've done.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. That's totally true, Paul. And so, talking about your true calling, you're not just like I myself. You're not 20 anymore.
Right.
So, how long do you see yourself going through with this, helping veterans?
As long as I'm capable of doing it.
That's what I call following your true calling, Paul.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
As long as I'm capable.
Yeah.
There may become a time when I'm not capable of doing it. And I fully recognize that. But right now, things are going very well. And I enjoy doing it. And I'm meeting a lot of people, with the exception of the pandemic, that's
of course
kept us all inside,
yeah.
But I like to do this as long as I'm capable of doing it, and my family remains healthy, and I can spend the time to do it. And
Wonderful.
I'm fortunate, very fortunate in that way. I'm very blessed, and I know it.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. That's. I was at a seminar like 4 years ago, and there was a man sitting next to me. He was 77, and he decided to buy a coaching program from one of the speakers that day. And he said to me, I'm aiming to become 102, and I don't want to do nothing for the next 25 years. And I thought it was a great mindset, and that's a mindset that, in my belief, it will make you older, because you're just going on. You have so much more to deliver, and that's beautiful.
Two things. One is, if you quit doing things, I think you no longer become an interesting person. That's number one. Number two, Erwin, the world has such great needs. Just, you know, you don't have to do something for, if you can afford it, you don't have to do something for compensation. The world has such great needs out there for help to repair the world.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, that you should try to work at that as long as you can. Because the need is there, and the number of people who are willing to work to help is not what it should be. You know, I was raised by my parents, taught by the Jesuits, educated by the Jesuits, trained by the Army to be of service to others. A person who lives for others. You come first. I come third.
Yeah.
There is no second. That's my margin for error.
Wonderful.
So that's how I was raised, educated, trained. I hope I passed it along to my children. I think I have. And now I'm down here in North Carolina and want to pass those same principles along to my two grandsons.
Yeah, those are some great values to pass along, Paul.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
And I've fallen down in this in many instances, but I had to get back up and try to live my life for other people. It's very important. The world has great needs.
Yep.
I remember my father and I were in the car and we drove past the cemetery, and he said, "See those graves?" He said, "You're going to be dead a long time."
Yeah, exactly. So, Paul, in your, let's say that you got your big pivot moment back in 2011. So that's just over 10 years now. In those past 10 years, is there a certain success story that comes to mind when you're thinking about entrepreneurs, veteran entrepreneurs that started their own business?
There have been many, but one of the ones I've very proud of, other than teaching here at Duke. This is a privilege to teach at Duke University, one of the great universities of the world. Is a distinct privilege, and I certainly am very grateful that I could do that. But a long time ago in Chicago, I was asked by a friend to talk to somebody who was not a veteran, but he wanted to start a coding school for veterans.
Okay.
And I had lunch with him, and I told him about the veterans experience, and my son, youngest son, who's a computer engineer, knew about coding schools. I passed that information along to him. And this gentleman, who's not a not a veteran. He was a commodities trader and made a nice living like that,
Mm-hmm.
and in Chicago, and has started and runs a very successful coding school for veterans called Code Platoon in Chicago. He's been very successful, and he in turn has helped a lot of veterans learn coding, computer coding, and gone on and gotten jobs. Which brings me to an interesting point. Sometimes we never know what we say or don't say or do when we should have influences somebody.
Yep.
So, you know, measure your words and deeds carefully, because you may have an impact on that person more than you realize.
Yep.
The opposite is true. You know, I mean, there are times when you should be speaking or doing things and you don't, you remain silent, and you could have influenced the situation. But be very cognizant of that, because I have had more people over the years come and tell me, you know, Paul, you said something when we passed on the street corner 10 years ago that resonated. What? You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't even remember the conversation. They did, and it influenced their life. So be very careful what you say and do, because it can influence a person for the rest of their lives. So I'm very proud of this coding school. This gentleman did it all on his own, but I hope that in our luncheon, inspired him and, you know, helped him to move along on this very successful path.
Yeah.
He's very successful.
Nice. Great story, and great sharing your wisdom as well, Paul. Thank you for that. So if there would be any last tip or little piece of wisdom you would like to share with the audience, Paul, what would it be?
It's not about you, it's about them. It's not about what you want. It's about what you can give. People talk in their careers, you know, about later on in life or volunteering, about giving back. I've never believed in that term, because giving back implies that you've been taking somewhere along the line. You shouldn't be taking, you should be consistently giving.
Yeah.
If you live your life for others, it will come back to you in a positive way, not 1,000 times, but 10,000 times, 10,000 times, without you ever asking for it.
Yeah. Good.
It may be difficult for people to understand that, but in my experience, it's been very true.
I can only agree with you, Paul. And maybe even a challenge of people as well that are true givers is also be able to receive, not take, right? Well, as you said, but to truly receive as well. And to give you a little example, Paul, I think that you're doing a great job. You know, you're truly you're a true giver, a true servant of humanity, so to speak. You know, you're helping veterans, finding the way and starting a new chapter in their lives. And there's a very big need for that. So on behalf of all those veterans, I would like to thank you for your service on that, Paul.
Well, I'm honored by those words, or when I wish my parents were alive to hear them. My father would be very proud. My mother would actually believe all the things you've said. So thank you very much. That's very kind of you. And I'll certainly try to live up to those words.
Thanks. So Paul, if people want to know more about you or get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Sure. You can go to my LinkedIn profile, which is Paul, middle initial A, Dillon, Dillon. I do have a company website, which is dillonconsult.com, which is DILLONCONSULT.com, or you can email me directly at paul@dillonconsult.com, and that's PAUL@DILLONCONSULT.com.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul. It was truly an honor to having you in the show as my guest. I wish you all the best. I hope you can live on delivering those wonderful service you're doing for many decades to come. And let's keep in touch.